Speaking of the Super Bowl, let's take a look at BetOnline's way too early futures bets for what could happen. What can happen next year? Who do we think is worthy of us today in February putting money down on that will pan out as a successful pick? The first one that I love, Sean, I love the Bengals at plus 1,400. And the betting public has liked this too because it originally started at plus 2,000. It has been moving.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Burrow playing as well as he did at an MVP caliber level, enough so that he was in the discussion, not making the playoffs, was in the final voting. That's hard to do, to be considered when your team doesn't even make the damn playoffs. They drafted a lot of young dudes defensively last year that didn't contribute or play to the way that they needed to. I don't think that every player's progression is where they need to be immediate impact starter. I think that there's a lot of young cats on that defense that could step up and perform better. I love Al Golden, obviously, him being a former Notre Dame DC. He, having already been there, helps this thing just hit the ground running. If they address the draft effectively and just kind of shore up those final holes, Joey B getting back there, I think is totally plausible. If there is one team that we're going like, man, why did we doubt them in the offseason, the beginning of the year? It's going to be the Bengals.
The Burrow factor is legitimate. They're losing Jermaine Pratt, who's requested a trade. I think that's tough. He was a good player for them at linebacker. I am so in on Burrow. I'm a huge Burrow guy. I think he is an absolute dodder. I think he's a killer at quarterback. I am starting to fade quickly on head coach Zach Taylor, though. He concerns me. So I'm a little hesitant about the Bengals Super Bowl odds. It's fine odds, plus 1,400. It's a bit of a shot.
That's the long shot one that you kind of you sprinkle down and you go, all right, if this one doesn't come to fruition, I'm not pissed. But if I want to just say that, if I want to be able to just raise my hand obnoxiously during next year's Super Bowl, like, hey, screw everybody, I had this pick right, none of you guys wanted to listen, that's the one.
I think my longer shot, this is one that I'm eyeing down, Chargers plus 3,300. They got the quarterback, they got the Harbaugh.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah, they do have
What's the if here? What's the if?
Look,
if Justin Herbert does what, they get to the Super Bowl.
If Justin Herbert just stays healthy and just gets another receiving option, gets Loveland.
A lot here.
I know I'm asking a lot, but I still believe in him. Yeah, if man could prove everyone wrong with the anti-if man, Jim Harbaugh, who only speaks in definites, who only does what he says he's going to do. I think he is a legitimate head coach. And, I'm not saying they're walking into the playoffs as the number one seed, but another year of Harbaugh coaching, Harbaugh ball, and we're looking at a Chargers team that could be more disciplined than they were this year, be a better team that's running the ball than they were this year. Hard to imagine, but I think they can do it. And, you just need to get an absolute weapon to go with Ladd, to go with whatever running back that they want to pull out of the stable. Go ahead. I think the Chargers are at least an option that I would keep my eye on throughout the season. I think they're going to be competitive throughout the whole season also.
I don't mind this. And Harbaugh is obviously the coach that would just not randomly, but produce an immediate improvement to where they go from being surface level playoff team to competing for a Super Bowl and being like a number one seed in the AFC. If there is a circumstance, it's this one, because Harbaugh's just a ball coach. He's a dude. He is a guy that I've despite him being a Michigan head coach, I have just always respected him as a head coach. He is going to get the guys right. I'm curious to see how free agency in this upcoming draft goes for them. And they also, outside of Herbert, they've got a lot of franchise cornerstones, Joe Alt being one of them. Like, you already have all that shit figured out. It's bound to set up success. I, of course, though, can't, and this is one of the most likely picks, I can't not put money down on the Chiefs at plus 600.
Yeah.
I am easily focused on in these conversations when we're placed in these spots of like trying to figure out, all right, who's going to fix their issues and win a Super Bowl. Going to the teams that draft well every single year are the ones to pick. It's how the Eagles just won a Super Bowl. It's how Kansas City has won Super Bowls. Their recent run that they had before that was the year that they drafted George Karlaftis and Trent McDuffie.
They knock it out the park. They do.
That was one of the best draft classes that they've had.
Nobody has picked better between the 30 through picks 30 and 32 than Kansas City has, maybe in NFL history. They find absolute studs that late in the draft, while you see teams missing in the teens, you see teams missing in the top 10, and they don't miss. Worthy, they don't miss at. I think he still can blossom. McDuffie's is a great shout. They just find guys that help their team. And they don't draft problems. They don't draft maybe Sky Moore is the last guy that had some expectation on the draft that hasn't really panned out.
Yeah.
But that's like one. Everyone else that they draft feels like an immediate impact guy. Chiefs, it's a fair play. It's a balanced play. I've got, I love my last pick here and I hate it at the same time. But it's the Lions plus 1,000. And I know you're losing both coordinators. I respect that loss. That's why I can't bet on this. Respect that impact, but they are a team that is led by a guy that is a culture guy. He's not calling all the plays. He is just keeping the team laser focused. You have a core of crazy talented young offensive pieces. I can't run through them all again. I've done it all year throughout the show. We know that Detroit Lions offense. I don't think they take a step back. Running backs still have juice in the tank. Wide receivers are still great. You still have Laporta. They still have a great offensive line. Shore it up again. Do everything that you just need to do to reinforce your team, how you want it structured, Dan Campbell, and let your coordinators come in and say, wow, you gave me a masterpiece. All I need to do is sign my name on it. Deal. Don't hire a bunch of eccentric coordinators that are going to mess with it. Hire Dan Campbell guys. I feel like Ben Johnson was a Dan Campbell guy. I feel like everybody was a Dan Campbell guy on that team, and that's what he does well. He finds guys that can help, that don't detract, that are not pulling away from the common focus. I think Detroit still has that. I like plus 1,000 on it.
Here's my only problem with that, and you let it in. You destroyed your own art. If you're trying to create an argument over here, brother, you can't give the best possible negating take. That you can't give the best possible counter argument, and that's what you did.
That's just laying out that they do have a challenge. Every team has challenges.
I would have blindly forgot about that if you were trying to lay things out, because you said a lot of right things. If there is a head coach that's gonna find the replacements for their coordinators that they don't lose a step, it's Dan Campbell. But the problem is do they take that step forward? I will never, ever put money down on a team that has two first-year coordinators, let alone maybe even one. But two first-year coordinators to win a Super Bowl, it's a very risky move to make. Now, I know the Eagles just did this. A lot of things needed to go right. Vic Fangio was fantastic, and it was ridiculous that he was even a cast-off from Miami.
Yeah.
Same thing with Kellen Moore. They couldn't have had better circumstances that both of those guys were available and that they were able to hire them. Another thing that played into the luck of the Eagles. But that's an exception to me. That's an exception to me. It takes some time for some gelling, and not knowing what the new coordinators are going to be like, especially after Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson were lauded as two amazing coaches. I don't know. I feel a little. I don't feel good about the Lions this upcoming year. They're going to be fine. They still win 13, 12 games.
I think they win the NFC North. Yeah. I think they continue to pillage. I don't think the offense takes a step back. It would be tremendously difficult with all that talent to find a coordinator to come in and mess that up. They're too good. And defense, they have been improving. They were severely injured this year on defense, and Aaron Glenn kept them competitive. I think you come in, and it's a talented defense also. You have a guy who comes in, fully healthy Lions defense. I don't think it's asking too much for them to be decent on that side of the ball, which is all they need to be with an exceptional offense. And I think the path is still there. NFC, I know they just won it. I still think they're a little bit weaker than the AFC. The path is there for Detroit. I like them.
The only other problem before we move on here, I have a lot of pause, and I've brought this up with the Eagles situation. I have a lot of pause investing in a situation that is frankly contingent on running back success. Like, you're betting on a position that gets injured often. David Montgomery even got hurt this year, They didn't lose like a significant step, but you could tell that their offense wasn't like really humming the way that it was when they had both Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So I don't know. I feel like if one of those guys goes down again for an extended period of time, which is possible to happen, I get worried.
I love the running back success being a huge factor, because that is a team that still commits to running the ball and getting their running backs involved in creative ways, still high on Detroit, and especially Gibbs and Montgomery.